On this episode of Dad Sews, we're making a ring sling.
Dad Sews! Dad Sews! Dad Sews! Dad Sews! Dad Sews! Dad Sews! This is how it goes with Dad Sews!
Hi, thank you for stopping by for another episode. I truly appreciate it. Dad Sews as a channel doesn't exist without you, the viewer. So thank you for stopping by, and please don't forget to click subscribe below and share this with your friends. I think this will be a very quick, easy, and helpful tutorial. Okay, now I am going to be using this nice knit fabric for my ring sling. Now, before you start yelling and cursing at me and throwing things at your screen, I want to say this. I have read and watched a ton of tutorials on how to make a ring sling. I've read the argument for and the argument against using knit fabric. I have read the argument for and against sewing your ring sling or doing a no-sew ring sling. Now the beauty is you can do a no-sew and it's all tension that holds it in the rings. But I'm going to be holding a larger baby. My baby is a year old, and I want to make sure that at least one of the ends never slips. And then the longer end, if that slips, I have more of a chance to grab that if anything goes wrong. I also wanted to use knit because it has a bit of a stretch to go around my baby's legs and my baby's bottom. You don't want to use a knit that's really stretchy. That's not going to work for you. But this knit has all of this thread running through it, which reinforces it. It stretches, but it doesn't give completely, and that's what you want to look for. So, no angry letters. I'm going to get angry comments, I'm sure, no matter which way I chose to do it. All right, now this is 2.5 yards of fabric, and I just laid it out on the floor because it's the only place I could do it, and cut this fabric, okay? Now, what we're going to do, the beauty of knit is that some people use it because they don't have to hem it. Well, you should hem your stuff. It looks better. But we're not actually going to hem the long edge. We're going to be sewing them together and making a loop. This is a completely different way of making a ring sling / Maya wrap than I have seen online. At least it's a little bit different in that I'm going to sew one big loop out of my fabric first. So once you have your fabric cut, you will just put the sides together, and the beauty of this fabric is it doesn't matter right side, wrong side. It's just wonderful looking either way. So I'm going to put these ends of my fabric together just like this, all right? And then we are going to take it over to our machine, and we're going to sew all the way down this whole length of fabric and make one big tube. All right, let's move to the sewing machine. All right, now when you start to sew your material, don't forget to back stitch at the beginning. That's just going to help your seam from opening up and coming out. And this is going to hold your most precious cargo, right? Your child. So you want to make sure you back stitch. Now, one cool thing I just learned about this Juki machine, actually when I was at the sewing expo and the Juki rep was talking to me, if you press back on the pedal, you can make it backstitch, or you can make it cut your thread, which is super cool. And maybe if I had read my manual like you're supposed to, I would have known that. But anyway, backstitch. All right, and you might have to adjust the tension because of the stretch fabric, and you also want to make sure you're using very good thread. You can use thread that has a little bit of stretch too. They make stretch thread since we're using stretch fabric. But I just told my machine I wanted to use a stretch stitch. Now for you, that could be something as simple as a zigzag stitch, but there's lots of stretch stitches on the new machines. You just got to find one that you're happy with. When you pull your material, it doesn't break. Like I said, you don't have to sew your ring sling. This thing is all about tension. When you put the fabric in, you hook it through the rings and the baby's weight is on it. The tension is holding it there. But the reason I like to sew one of the rings is that way, yes, I'm still using tension to hold the baby up, but if something goes wrong or something slips, I know that one of those rings are going to hold, and then I have a chance to really quickly grab the other piece of fabric and catch the baby. That's super important. I've got a lot of fabric to go. Now be careful when you're sewing something so long and so heavy, you don't want it just hanging on the floor because it's gonna pull on your machine and it's gonna pull on your needle and it could actually break your needle. So you want to gather it up on your table and kind of just have it ready and monitor it while you're feeding it through. And don't forget, when it goes on the other side of the machine, you don't want it just falling off your table and pulling the needle that way. It can break, believe it or not. So go ahead and just gather it up on the other side and gather it up on this side and go slow and steady if you need to. Don't rush this. You want a good stitch that's going to hold. Now nobody's going to see this once we turn it inside out, but you want to make it strong and you want to know you did your best, all right? I'm going to go ahead and sew the rest of this and we're just going to have a big tube at the end and then we'll move on to the next step. I will be right back. All right, so I'm done sewing my seam. I switched to a purple thread so you can see it really well on camera. And also you can see that when I pull, the seam doesn't pop. The threads do not pop open. And that's one, using good thread, and two, using a stretch stitch. All right, now we are just going to flip this inside out, or I guess right side out, and pull this through. It's like a big sausage casing at this point. All right, now we're gonna take the seam, right like so. I'm gonna tuck it right under my chin, and then we're just gonna fold each end towards the seam. All right, see how we did that? I'll put it on the overhead camera. We take this and fold it towards the seam, just like that. All right, now we're gonna put on our rings. Now you can order rings from ringsling.com and they have great rings that are made just for this purpose and they are rated to hold the weight of your child. But I got this ring at Lowe's for 99 cents. And it's rated for up to 200 pounds. Now, if you're carrying around a 200-pound baby, I'm going to judge you and say you're probably doing something wrong. Maybe you're carrying your husband around. I don't know. So I got these at Lowe's. Now, they are a smaller diameter than some of the rings people use. Some of the rings people use are as big as like bangle bracelets. But this is really going to do just fine for our needs. All right, once you have this folded, you're going to kind of bunch this up. All right, and you're gonna slide into both of your rings. You're gonna pull it through and then you're gonna kind of unbunch it. But remember to leave that fold right where you can see it. All right, we've got this end and our fold. Let's just stretch this out just a little bit more. All right, now what you're gonna do is just flip this over, all right? Flip it over. This is gonna hold on your rings. And we're just going to match up our fold where we flipped over on one side and our fold where we flipped over on the other side and just kind of line everything up, make it pretty with your stripes if you have stripes like mine. All right, kind of tuck that together. And that is where we are going to sew. Now again, you want to use a stretch stitch, okay? This is going to be a load-bearing stitch. This is going to get pulled on. So you want to use a stretch stitch, a zigzag stitch or something fancier if you've got it. I'm going to go ahead and put 3 on mine because I want to make sure it holds. That is the most important part of this job. So I'm going to go ahead and put 3 stretch stitches right now. And now this is a very thick bit of fabric. If you don't have a foot that kind of adjusts, you can get a thingamajig. It's a little tool you can get on Amazon. I'll make sure to look it up and put it in the link below. Or you can get it at your fabric store and it will kind of raise your foot and move it around so that you can put thicker fabric underneath and kind of slide it through without binding everything up. All right, now just be slow and easy as you sew. It's a thick amount of fabric, so you want to make sure you do it well, not necessarily fast. All right, and like I said, you might need to adjust the tension on your thread. Now, we've talked about tension. This project is all about tension, the tension that holds the baby in the rings. But I'll tell you what, as a dad that carries a baby, there's some tension. If your husband won't carry the baby. It might be that he's a little worried about doing it and doing it right. You know, we're scared too, and we're afraid we're gonna make a mistake. And I'll tell you what, when I'm carrying a baby around the mall, I get some looks. And sometimes I get moms coming up to me and go, "Oh, you're such a sweet dad carrying that baby." But a lot of times women look at me like, "Ugh, what's he doing? That is not manly at all." And I'll be honest, I get that more from women than I do from men, which is weird. And I'm in a bunch of Facebook groups with dads because of Plaid Dad Blog, which I also run. And there's a lot of tension when it comes to dads carrying babies. And here's another cool thing that you can do with this sling. You can use it when you're feeding the baby. That way your hand's free so you can sew some projects. And if you're feeling a little tense out in public and you do want to be a little more modest when you're feeding the baby, not that you need to be, you can take the long tail that comes from the sling and you can kind of flip it up over the baby's head, cover him, her, and yourself up if you want. So this really is a cool project. All right, don't forget to backstitch there. All right, did that even backstitch. It's so thick, it doesn't want to backstitch. All right, cut your thread. All right, there we go. All right, that doesn't look too bad. I missed a stitch in there, but I'm gonna be able to pick it back up. So not too bad. I just need to adjust the speed that I'm going with my needle, and then I think I'll be pretty good. As you can see right there, it missed a stitch and then it started picking them right back up. So I'm gonna go ahead and do 2 more lines of stitching there, and then we will show you how to wear your baby. Pretty cool. All right, well, here is the sling ring. Now, when you put your sling ring on, you want to take the tail up and through both rings and then out over the other ring, just like the strap on your luggage. I didn't do it for you for 2 reasons. One, I have a very cranky, teething baby at the moment. And the other reason, as you can see in her hand, my rings were too small. So I've gone back to the hardware store, show them, Lexi, and I got 2.5-inch rings. This is pretty much the minimum, especially if you have a nice thick piece of fabric with a big tail. So I would start with 2.5-inch rings and then go from there. But there's so much fabric through here and it's so tight, we should be good for this demonstration. So the folded over end that we made, where it folded over the middle, that's gonna be the one that's on the inside here. And it goes around the very, very cranky baby. I'm so sorry, Lexi. Oh, I know. Now, some people say these soothe babies, but nothing's soothing her other than ibuprofen. All right. And there you go. You pop it around your baby, and you pop her legs around you. Oh, there we go, Alex. Is that good? While she's being happy, let's show you how you tighten this. You just kind of give it a pull while she's in it, and again, your straps are going to go in and out. But look at that. Hands free. Baby's secure. You happy? Can you say hi? Can you say hi to Carlin? Hi! So that's how you tighten it. All right. I think we're going to cut back to me saying goodbye now. Hi! Say bye-bye, Internet. Bye-bye. There we go. Bye-bye. Mwah. Mwah.
This production is brought to you by the Plaid Dad Blog Podcast Network. For more information, visit us at plaiddadblog.com.